So welcome to Bridge the Cloud Divide, Hybrid Business Intelligence with SharePoint 2016 and Office 365. My name is Jason Himmelstein.
My name is John White.
And we are here to spend the next 75 minutes with you so that you can understand how we're going to do all of this really cool BI stuff in an on-prem and cloud world. So a little bit about ourselves before we dive in. As I said, my name is Jason. I am a technical strategy director at Rackspace, responsible for Microsoft technologies. I'm an Office Servers and Services MVP. I live in Texas. That's not my house, though. I'm very, very, very lucky. I have my dream job. I get to travel around the world, spend time with customers, hear what the types of things that people are having problems with, and then spend time both internally at Rackspace and with our friends at Microsoft to try and help come up with solutions. It's an amazing life, and unfortunately it sends me on far away from my family frequently, but I get to go to cool places like Hobbiton, and that's where that is. So you can find me through my blog at sharepointlonghorn.com. You can follow me on Twitter, @JaceHim, and you feel free to send emails after the conference or during the conference if you have questions. And that's me.
And I'm John White. I'm the CTO and co-founder of Unlimited Viz. We are the makers of tyGraph. If you've seen any of that funky Twitter analysis stuff for Ignite, that's us. We do reporting and analytics for Office 365 on a very wide and a very, very deep level. My specs are up on the screen as well. Diverdown1964 is my Twitter handle. And yes, that's me in the picture, doing what I like to do when I'm not doing this stuff. It also explains my Twitter handle. When your name's John White, you got to come up with something creative. Yeah, that's me.
All right. Well, this is us. For those of you who want to hear more after the session, please feel free to go out and follow us at bifocal.show. We do a podcast at this point. It's weekly. And we've done a bunch of interviews with product team members throughout the course of this week. We had the good fortune of podcasting live from the Podcast Center here, where we got to interview Sri Sun and Chris Finland. Sri is responsible for the Power BI service, and Chris is responsible for PBIRS. And a lot of other stuff, and they're ancillary and responsible for other things. But we did that live yesterday, so that show's already up on off our Facebook page. So if you want to hear more, specifically, there was a great licensing conversation. We're not going to dig in too deep into licensing today, but we talked in depth on that show yesterday, so go check that out as well. So give us a follow and have a listen to that also.
I should also point out, if you've got questions as we go through, I think we can take them. We have to stick to time, obviously, so if anything's going to take too long to answer, we'll put you off until the end. But feel free to jump in with anything if it's not clear, because this stuff's complicated.
Yeah. So we're going to run through our agenda really quickly, and then we're going to dive right in immediately into demo. So we're going to talk about some choices that you have to make when it comes to what you're going to do with Cloud BI and on-prem. We're going to talk about the reporting platforms. We're going to then talk about some of the on-premises data gateway refresh stuff that you need to have an understanding around. We'll dive into dashboards as a concept, and then we're going to show you some scenarios for staying in the cloud, staying on-prem, how you bridge that cloud, and then both in very complex and in lighter scenarios as well. Then we're going to wrap it all up, and hopefully by the end of this you have seen a really rockin' demo and understand end-to-end how that works.
You're setting the bar really high.
Well, I'm going to make you do a lot of work during the session, John. So,
I hope so too.
Yes, this is our mega hybrid demo. Okay, and I have to go to the next slide. So, I mentioned the fact that I'm from Texas. So hurricane relief is on my mind these days. In fact, last night we have to make an apology to everybody who was at the Red Party last night.
Was anybody at the Red Party last night?
Anybody at the AvePoint Red Party last night?
Sorry about the damage to your eyes.
Yeah, we did some things to raise money for charity. We're not particularly proud of it. Well, John's proud of it. But we raised over $5,000 for the Hurricane Harvey Relief Fund last night. So thank you to AvePoint for putting that on and for everybody who donated. But hurricane relief is an important thing. Everybody's focused on this. So we decided as we were building out our mega hybrid demo that is the scenario that we're going to base this on. The concept behind this is that John and I are a part of a company called Serendipity. And we want to raise, not just money for the relief fund, but we want to collect supplies, because money, it's easy to donate money. What you really need, though, in a lot of cases, is to donate supplies to places. So we decided that that's what we were going to do. So I'm going to flip over to my iPhone here. Oh, wrong one. You're 8, I'm 7.
I'm 8.
All right, so those are my boys. That's an old picture of them. But we decided that the way that we would do this is we built a Power App. And we even themed it. This theme is called Blue Steel.
Blue Steel.
Blue Steel. So you'll see that in a second. Here we go. So you will see here that we have submitted a whole bunch of different items into this Power App, and this Power App stores its data in a SharePoint list. Now, there are a couple things that happen along the way, but I'm not going to give any of that away. What I'm going to do is I'm going to submit an item here, and we're going to call it a bunch of wood. All right, and then I'm going to go off and load up who the donor is. Need to get that.
Type it in. You got to type it in.
I have to type it in?
Yeah.
I thought that I had. Okay. There we go. So that's going to be me. And the donation type for this is going to be building supplies. Monetary value of that is going to be $250. And I'm going to set the availability. I'm not going to be able to actually get it there until, let's call it the 12th of October. All right. And the source for this, well,
Rackspace.
I'm going to be Rackspace. There we go. Even though Rackspace is not spelled right, that's okay.
You have an entry with an info.
There you go. You should be able to submit that.
Okay.
There we go.
There you
All
go.
right. Almost had demo fail there, John.
We almost did.
So now you can see I've submitted my bunch of wood, and it's now there. It has been submitted. All right, so that submits to a SharePoint list.
I'm going to flip over.
I'm going to flip over to you.
And we're going to come over here to a SharePoint list. And if you hear the pinging, you hear some emails that are going on. So if I come up here, I've got a SharePoint list already loaded. I'm just going to refresh it so you can see the change. And you can see a bunch of wood at the top of the list. So we've been able to get that Power App, made the submission. And it's kicked off a flow. And the flow has done a couple of things. The first thing it's done is it's set the status to in review. So I'd like to point that out right here. The other thing it's done is it's sent me, as the approver, an email. So I can just go into my email and click on approve or reject and give a reason. But I could also come up here to flow and come over here to the approval section. So if I happen to be in flow and I've got a number of things to deal with, this is an alternate way to do it. It's something that's new to the product, and I wanted to make sure everybody had seen it. And you can see we've got the review of a bunch of wood right here. So I'm just going to click on that. I have the option here of approving or rejecting. I can also click on the link and be taken directly to that SharePoint list item. I'm just going to click on approve and to say we need this and confirm. And after I do that, I'll come back to my same list, refresh it, and what we should see here is that it's been approved. But at the same time, it's gone down to SQL Server on premises. So what we wanted to do is collect up the actual submissions, but only take the approved items and put them in a transactional system that happens to be on premises. And just to show you that, I'm going to come down here and open up SQL Server Management Studio. And this is against, again, a server that happens to be on-prem. Hit execute, and you can see a bunch of wood has shown up. We're just doing a select by ID in descending order. And you can see Jason's bunch of wood has showed up with a value of 250 at the top of the list right now. Now, I'm going to come back over here to the cloud. I'm going to minimize this. And I'm going to come into Power BI. I'm going to show, basically, we're showing this report is I'm just refreshing that to show you I've just refreshed it. And you can see on the screen that there's a submission from Jason Himmelstein because I submitted because I refreshed this report after he'd submitted. But you can see it still says in review. And the reason it still says in review is because we're not connecting live to the data source. So in this case, this report is built against a SharePoint list. That simple list generated this report, or we're able to get these kind of insights against a simple SharePoint list. But SharePoint isn't a data source that we can connect to directly. We have to keep that data up to date. So I'm going to go ahead and come down here and manually refresh it. I could wait until the schedule kicks off, and you can set a refresh schedule with Power BI, obviously. But I'm just going to go ahead here, and refresh now. And time for you.
All right, so we're going to switch back over to me. Beautiful, thank you. It's a pretty complex demo, by the way. So we actually scripted this thing out because there's a lot of moving pieces. This took us about 3 weeks to design and build the demo, and we're going to show you how everything's moving on the back side of this. We wanted to show you how somebody would use it first, and then we're going to show you how to build something like this. So, or how it works on the back side. So now we are in Power BI on my phone. This is my actual iPhone, but I've turned off notifications. So if you're tweeting us right now, it's not going to show up because I've done this before and I have friends in the audience. And I use the word friends lightly. All right, so here we are. We are now on that same report that you saw before, and I can see everything that was there. I see Al Ward was the last thing. And here I see in review, I have 89 items in review and 205 pledges. I want to go back just 1 second and point out, this is this report down here. It's the second from the last one, and you'll notice the icon. This is a mobile report. Okay, that's why I get that cool visualization. Now, I went back. You'll notice the data has changed. Because I had it cached before, it was already on my phone and open. I had 89. I now have 88 in review because John has already approved that piece, and I can scroll down, and there I am. I can see my stuff. I could scroll over. If my fingers weren't too fat.
That's the problem.
Yeah, it's fat fingers. There we go. I can sort of scroll over, and there I can click into the list. I can see my piece up top here, and I'm good to go. Now, I want to click over as well and go up to, let me find the right one up here. It is the demo one here, the donation report. Now, this immediately kicks me into landscape mode. I have to flip my phone. It did it automatically there. And this particular report is not a mobile report. This one is a Power BI report, not in mobile format. So this one as well has not been fully updated, but we're going to get to that here in just 1 second.
So you can design specifically for a phone layout, but if you don't, it's going to do its best to be responsive on a different device.
I can zoom. That's readable. I can read it.
It's not bad.
It's pretty
It's not
cool.
bad.
All right.
And the interesting thing about that is that data, that's the report that's telling us what has been approved. So that data is coming from SQL Server on premises. We're on a mobile device. All right?
You ready to flip over?
I think we are.
All right, back to 8.
So far, so good.
All right, I'm impressed.
Yeah. Well, hold your breath.
I am.
Okay. So this is the report. I've taken the liberty of hitting the refresh button at the top of the page, which is basically refresh the visuals with the refreshed data, if that makes sense. But you saw before we flipped off, I hit refresh data, and you can see those numbers match. And again, that data is coming from SharePoint. So if I'm going to come back up here and click on this very same report. This is the one that Jason showed you that's showing the data from on-premises. And you can see, of course, there's our approved item in there. It's a bunch of wood. Now that's interesting. However, I don't have everybody in the organization using Power BI. They don't typically go to app.powerbi.com and build reports, etc. I want to publish this to my organization so that everybody can see it. How do I do that? First thing I'm going to do is come up here to the File menu in Power BI, and I'm going to say Embed in SharePoint Online. I'm going to copy this URL to the clipboard, and then I'm going to come over here to SharePoint, and I'm going to create a new page. And this is obviously Office 365. We've got it's a SharePoint Modern page, and I'm just going to name it Ignite Hurricane. relief. I'm going to insert a web part, and this is modern web parts. If I can find it, there it is, Power BI. I'm going to click on Add Report. I'm going to paste the link in here. We're going to wait just a second. Yes, just a second. And it's a one-page report, so I don't have to worry about picking a page. And of course, because I only have one page, I don't need to show the navigation pane on the bottom. I want this to be a nice, clean insertion. And just like that, I click on Publish, and I have a SharePoint page with a Power BI report embedded in it that's fully interactive. I click on Jason Himmelstein, you can see all of the items he's collected. I click on Al Ward, you can see all of the items he's collected, as well as when we expect to receive these items and how that contributes to our overall goal. Don't forget, we're in SharePoint Online, embedding a report from Power BI online that's reading data from SQL Server on premises, just so you can keep score. What's that? How?
We're going to show you.
We're going to get right into that.
Yep.
Yeah, the how-to is what we'll get into it. So what we want to do is give you the big bang demo so you understand what we're talking about when we talk about it, because otherwise it's just a bunch of diagrams of wheels spinning.
So we're going to ask you guys hold questions until we're done with the demo, and
Yeah.
then give us a chance,
That's cool.
and we'll be happy to answer all of your questions.
Okay, so we've embedded. So we've kind of done online to death a little bit. What if we're on-prem? Is that what you're asking?
That's what I was going to ask you,
That's what
John.
you were going to ask me? We can come over here and we have Power BI Report Server. Okay? Power BI Report Server basically gives you what you get in the cloud from a report standpoint without having to be in the cloud. You don't have to even be connected to the cloud if you don't want to. And Power BI Report Server is I'm saying it right, not reporting service. Power BI Report Server is a superset of SQL Server reporting services. So it can do everything that SSRS can do, plus what? Plus Power BI, plus Excel. So just to show you that, I'll make sure I'm going to go to the right one first. The donation report, yes. So we're going to come over here to the Power BI donation report. Load the data. And that is effectively SSRS. It's the new Power BI report server rendering the same data. Now you may notice one difference on this particular report from the one I just showed you. It's the data itself. This is currently in preview, and we're using a Power BI report that has an embedded data model. Right now, we can't automatically refresh that. We can do it manually. By GA, that will come. Okay, just so you can be aware. So that's why the numbers are different. However, today we can go back, and what we should do is show you what a classic report looks like, a RDL style report. So we can come down here. And I'm going to load this one up. This is the one report I don't think I warmed up before the demo.
So I want to point one other thing out. While John is doing that, I'm going to flip back over to my mobile here for just 1 second. I showed you, the mobile report. I showed you a Power BI report on the mobile device. The thing that I didn't get a chance to show you, and we actually don't have in our script, is exactly what John's doing right now. This is my mobile report in Power BI, right? The work that John's doing, though, is on-prem. And if I back out, I can go to my on-prem data, and I can get to exactly the same report that John is looking at right now from my mobile device. Without having to log out, I go and I can log into both places at the same time, 2 different sets of authentication, and I can see both reports, one in the cloud and one on-prem.
Jason just went off-roading, by the way.
I did. That was a little bit of a vamp. I had that sort of in my pocket planned, waiting in case we had a little bit of a
in case I had to kill some time, right? Okay, nice. So this is a classic RDL style report, okay? This is not your grandfather's SSRS, but it's that same, it's the same technology in behind it. It's a paginated report. We'll get to all of that here in just a minute. And one thing that's interesting that we can do here, and not a lot of people know it, you've been able to do this since SSRS 2016, so I can take this particular visual, I can click here, and then take this particular visual and put it up in Power BI. So I'm going to come down here to my demos workspace. I'm going to pick a dashboard. I'm going to pick Ignite. And hopefully I remembered to delete the one we did last time. But anyway, we'll find it. We might wind up with 2 of these. Anyway. And then we can specify the frequency of updates. So what will happen is we're going to pin this to a Power BI dashboard in the cloud. So when we come back over here to Power BI, and we come up here to the Ignite dashboard, yeah, we see 2. John's prep failed. But a service on the Power BI report server will keep that visual on the dashboard up to date, and you can pin Power BI cloud visuals beside it. So it's another angle from a hybrid standpoint of taking the reporting that's on-prem and putting it up in the cloud. And what's nice about this is that if I can be coming to it from the Power BI service, say, that's interesting, I can click on it. And what happens? The report opens up. And that report's on-prem. How does that happen? It doesn't happen if you don't give your Power BI report server a fully qualified domain name. It needs to be addressable from outside, okay? So, finally, we did say hold questions, okay. So we're gonna do that. Okay, so I'm gonna come back here finally, and I'm gonna come over to SharePoint on premises now. So if you got SharePoint on premises, how are you going to put these very same reports in context, in content? So this is a SharePoint 2016 page, classic web part page that we're talking about. I'm going to come in here and create one. I'm going to add it. So Ignite PBIRS embed. We've all seen this dialogue once or twice, eh? I'm going to come over here to insert. Who here's used integrated mode SharePoint, or SSRS in SharePoint? A few of you? I would expect a couple of you in this room. Yeah, and so one of the things that happened, well, is about to happen, really, is...
We're going to get to that in a few minutes, John.
Is integrated... Yeah, okay, I won't go off on it.
Don't give too much away.
In any event, I've got a Power BI report server report here, an RDL-style report, and I'm going to come down here, and I'm going to click on this node. We've got a report viewer web part in here for this. I'm going to add it. I'm going to come over here and click on Edit. I'm going to specify the URL of the server. In this case, I'm going to use an internal URL. Yes. And I know it's called SP16, but that's okay. And we call it Hurricane. This is where we're most likely going to have a fail. And that'll be because I type it wrong. Probably should have used a shorter name, don't you think?
Well, yeah, but that would have been really nice to you, and I don't like doing that.
That's not, yeah, exactly. So one of the things I can do with the reports embed is control the layout. I'm going to turn all of these options off because the intent of this is going to be to put it in a dashboard with other things. I don't want too much of the underlying reports Chrome to show up. I'm going to not want to display the prompt windows or the layout windows. I'm going to come down here. I'm going to click on Apply.
Do a little crossing of the fingers here.
Yeah, this would be a good place to. That's a good thing. I'm going to come in here and load parameters. So this is a version of that same report that's had SSRS parameters applied to it. And with SSRS parameters, I can come down here and select any one of these donation categories. So I'm going to pick cleaning supplies in this case.
No, building supplies.
What's that?
Building supplies. Forgot to change it.
Okay, you want building supplies? We put building supplies. And then we come in here, and one final thing is I don't want to give this web part a title. So I'm going to turn off the Chrome, and I'm going to tell it to automatically adjust for the size. Gone are the days where we have to worry about how big the web part needs to be to house the underlying report. Anyway, finally, I'm going to click on OK. and with any luck, it's spinning, so that's a good sign. Ta-da.
Huzzah.
We've embedded that report in a classic mode SharePoint page on premises. This would work with SharePoint 2013 as well. There's no reason, I haven't tried it, but it should work with 2010 if there's anybody on 2010 in the house. Okay? So we've been able to embed reports on-prem, in the cloud, with data from on-prem and in the cloud. We're going to get into all of that detail here. Now's a good time for questions.
What'd you think?
Was that cool?
All right.
That's cool.
All right, high five.
High five?
There you go. All right.
We had to ask for the applause, though.
I wasn't asking for applause. I was looking to see if people thought it was okay.
Okay.
Can I have a question?
Yeah.
One of the nice features with SharePoint in the report is that you can have interaction with SharePoint environment. So you can push parameters from SharePoint.
That's right.
Yes.
Yes, you can.
Repeat the question, Jack.
Is it also possible?
Yes.
Also possible in Power BI integration?
So, okay, I'll answer both of those by repeating the question first. So the question is it possible to pass parameters to the web part, the web part that you just saw? And the answer to that question is yes. It works. If you've ever used the integrated mode web part before, this is the same. It works. It just works with native mode now. And the point being is with integrated mode reporting services being deprecated, this gives us a path forward. We can take our reports, put them in native mode, but still have all of that good dashboarding stuff in SharePoint. Power BI reports, those style reports, not at the moment. We can't really, it's not parameters done in the same way. There are different report types that we can pass parameters through a URL if they support them. Power BI reports don't really support parameters in the same way that SQL Server Reporting Services does.
To the authenticated user, to the Office 365, to the SharePoint site, and then you can filter that authenticated user to the Power BI.
I'm going to answer that question because I know the answer.
And then we need to move on.
I actually demoed that capability at the SharePoint conference 2014 specifically. Yeah, I'm getting the move on. But we'll hold it if it gets more complicated. But yes, we can use a filter web part that's a user filter web part and pass the name of the user to the report and therefore get a personalized view. Yes is the answer. So, okay. So what we want to get into is what you saw. We're gonna walk through it again from a diagrammatic standpoint. The first thing you saw was Jason submit a form with Power Apps, and that landed an item in a SharePoint list. That spawned a flow that sent out an item for approval. Upon approval, the SharePoint item got updated with the status, but then the data got flown back through the on-premises data gateway. So there was a question about how that works. This is how that works. Directly into SQL Server on-premises.
So Flow was managing that process. When the approval came in, it did two things. Okay? It went off and it updated SharePoint, and it also sent the data on-prem. So it wasn't another action that was taking place. It was all being done through Flow. It was just able to send the data to two places.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't replicate the list. It didn't duplicate the list from SharePoint.
No.
It sent key points data to a table of Microsoft.
Correct.
Correct. We chose which data we wanted to flow into the SQL Server database, and it updated the SharePoint list. It went off and did the approval on the SharePoint list, and we grabbed data from that specific data that we wanted into the database and pushed that over.
I didn't remind you to repeat the question anyway.
You're right.
Okay, and so once that got there, Power BI on a schedule, normally, would have gone off and retrieved that data from SharePoint. I went and told it to update manually. So then, when I come in and refresh my report, I'm loading data from the data that's cached in Power BI. Everybody with me? Okay. However, that second report that you saw me run, when I queried it, I went to Power BI, and then Power BI went through the data gateway and did a live query against SQL because I was using something called direct query. We're going to get into that here in just a minute. Okay? So it happened in real time. As soon as that data got sent to the database, it's available. We didn't have to refresh it, although we could. Then we embedded it in SharePoint. The user would then go off to SharePoint and essentially be redirected to Power BI. That web part is a client-side. That Power BI web part in the cloud is a client-side web part, which means the user is actually making the connection. It's a glorified iframe, but it's very glorified. There are things going on with authentication that you can't do with an iframe. And again, that data that query was sent directly back to the SQL Server. Shifting gears, we had Power BI reporting server.
Report server.
Report server. It's hard. It was a live report. I'm talking about the RDL report now. The user went off, loaded that report, and it basically does a direct query against SQL. But then I'm able to also pin that. I'm able to pin that visual into the Power BI service, and another user can come along also and connect directly to the Power BI report server. Finally, if we add SharePoint to the mix, users will access SharePoint, but that SharePoint web part, that report viewer web part, then goes and queries the report server from SharePoint. And this is important when you're setting it up. In many, many cases, in most cases, in all cases except where you're running them on the same machine, you will need to have Kerberos running in your environment to get that to work, okay? But of course, users can always go directly to the reporting services server anyway. And no, I didn't. I'll leave that part alone for later. I didn't show the embeds of the other stuff, but yeah, we're running low on time. That's okay. So that's basically how it all flows together. So if you put it all together, it looks like a mess.
It's a little super complicated.
That's why we didn't start off with this.
We decided that we would go ahead and do the demo first and then give the explanation. Hopefully that worked for everybody. This deck is going to be available. We've already submitted it, so you'll be able to grab all the info out of this. The key here is understanding that we have the ability to have workloads being run in multiple places, different audiences accepting and using it in different ways. You saw I was using the Power BI mobile app, and I had two different authentication models, one for on-prem, one for in the cloud. You may have two different users who, one, you only want to be able to access data on-prem. You don't want to go off and buy them Power BI licensing and all of that and get premium capacity, everything. If that's a choice that you're making, that's something you can do and split out those models. Now, the choices that you have to make here, there are a couple things we want to stress. You need to be decisive. You need to make a decision and stick with your decision on this, okay? Figure out how you're going to put your data where and basically stick with that. Make the decision right, wrong, or indifferent. It's going to be the decision that you're going to make a choice about, and take it all the way through. Try it out. If it turns out to be a wrong decision, well, then go make a new choice. But don't hem and haw. Go all out and pick one. The road of life is paved with flat squirrels who couldn't make a decision. Now, John, we chose a bunch of fish for this slide. Why was that?
Well, there's a couple reasons. They're my pictures. I didn't have any pictures of dead squirrels.
Yeah, we kind of thought that a dead squirrel on a slide was in poor taste, so you got a bunch of fish. So, let's talk for just a second about some basic BI architecture stuff, because we walked through some very complicated scenarios there, and for those of you who in the room who that was confusing to, let's talk basics for just a moment. At the core of it, you have data somewhere, right? Everybody's got data. That's sort of a universal at this point. Whether it's in an Access database in Excel, it's in a database, or it's you're pulling from an OData source. You're getting your data from somewhere. And in today's world, we're doing a transformation of that data and putting it into a data warehouse, some form of storage. Okay? We're doing that, in the world that John and I live in, we tend to either do that through a Power Query or through SSIS and things of that nature. It's all the Microsoft stack. Put that into a data warehouse, and then push that data into a data mart or into a multidimensional storage cube type of a thing. Now, that's great, but users have to get at this stuff. So we're either going to go server side and be able to pull data and pull directly from the data marts or the cubes, and then ultimately pull that into a visual that somebody's going to be able to use, or we're going off and building directly and visualizing that way, okay? So a couple of things that we want to talk through around the benefits of either cloud or on-prem. We're going to start with the cloud BI benefits. One of the benefits is you only pay for what you use, okay? You have the ability to scale up, scale down. Generally, it's on a monthly basis, and you're able to leverage that by user in some cases. As you start to look at premium capacity in Power BI, you're going to do that based upon tiering and number of cores that you need to access and things of that nature. You're going to be able to keep an eye on that and scale it as needed. Okay? You can scale up and you can scale down. If you're in the development space as an ISV, with the new A SKUs, you're actually able to scale up and scale down, even going down to 0 at certain times. Benefit of Cloud BI, it's all modern. Okay? You are on the modern platform. You are riding the wave, so to speak. You're having to stay up to date with it, but it's all the new stuff. Everything that we're seeing out there now is going to be mobile ready. The integration capabilities are there because you're all in the cloud, so being able to pull from Power BI into SharePoint or into Teams and into different places, Dynamics, et cetera, you have that capability because the integration is all there. From an agility perspective, you have to stay up and agile, so that's kind of a benefit, kind of a drawback, but you also are just getting tons of new features on such a regular basis. The Cloud BI team at Microsoft is pushing out new features all the time. We're seeing on a very regular cadence, and they're doing a good job of telling us about them, which is really, really nice. Now, some of the drawbacks or challenges that we have, you can deal with some data latency. Okay, you have to have enough pipe in order to go off and pull the size data that you're talking about. You have to have the right capacity up there as well. So when you're looking at the right SKUs and how much storage do I need, if I'm using Azure VMs and I want to do all of that, or if I'm using premium capacity in Power BI, what tiering do I need to have? All those things are things you have to have consideration around. Challenge in the cloud around data sensitivity. Are you willing to put your data into the cloud? What sensitivity level do you have? And what about data sovereignty? Do you need to keep data on your soil? Or is it something that you can have be in a different data center in a different country? You have to deal with the regulatory requirements, especially with GDPR coming up next year. That is a big concern for a lot of people. If you're doing any business internationally, it's a concern for you. If you're not thinking about it already, you need to be thinking about it. Okay? And security perceptions. We call it perceptions because by definition, the cloud is a secure platform, okay? It's not until we let humans into it that it becomes insecure, okay? We are the weakest link. We are the problem. We are the security vulnerability, okay? That's the reality of it. There are always going to be things where there are, day zero bugs and things like that, but for the most part, we're dealing with a very secure platform at this point. And lastly, John, we put features on here as well under challenges because it is a reality that new features are going to drop in and your users are going to find them sometimes before you are. And trying to stay up on all of the new features is a challenge. It's a good challenge to have, but it is a challenge nonetheless.
And sometimes you have features on-prem that you don't have in the cloud.
Very true. Now, talking to the on-prem benefits, we have complete control. You notice there are a few fewer things here, but we're talking reality here. So we get ultimate control over our on-prem data. Okay, that is a reality of being on-prem. Is you own it, it is yours. You have complete control over it. If you feel like you're under threat, you can just go pull an Ethernet cable and everything's good to go, right? You're fine. Scale. You have the ability to truly scale to the upper limits of the hardware that you have without incurring additional costs. You've made your capital investment one time, and now you have an unlimited scale to the limits that your hardware is bound. Okay, we're not dealing in, well, I only have this many, I can only have 4 gigs of RAM in a VM anymore, things of that nature. Customization, you can customize the heck out of an on-prem implementation. You don't get that capability in the cloud to truly customize the implementation of the software. Okay? You can do some really bad things with customization on-prem, but if that's the choice that your company has made, I've seen a lot of them.
That looks like a dead squirrel.
It really is kind of a dead squirrel. And again, you have benefit of features. Your feature set is whatever you choose it to be. When you look at the stack and you say, we're going to implement this version of the products and we're going to keep it there, you don't have to worry about anybody coming along and moving your cheese. Okay, there are no more updates than what you are making. Now, on the drawbacks or challenges side here, cost. You have an initial sunk cost. Depending upon if you're CapEx or OpEx, if you're leasing versus buying on hardware, you still have a big bill for a hardware concern. You're still dealing in power, cooling, networking, etc. That's a huge amount of cost that you have to factor in. And it is a part of the compute cost. You have to factor that into it. You have to deal with maintenance. It means you have to do it, or you have to have a managed service provider. By the way, I work for Rackspace.
You do work for it.
I don't know if I mentioned it earlier. So you have to have a managed service provider or a hoster that's actually handling those things for you. From a features perspective, you only get what they're giving you. Okay? Features are always going to come to the cloud first, folks. That is the reality. Always going to come to the cloud first. They're going to try it out in the place where they have total control, and then they're going to give us new sets of features for on-prem. And that means that it's pretty well tested by the time you get it for on-prem.
Or they won't. Yes, yeah, pretty well, yeah.
Yeah. So from an integration perspective, it's hard to integrate into other systems when you don't have a back end that is meshed in with everything else. You are static, you're standalone. Now, when you are deploying products that are integrated already, that's great. Office Online Server is very well integrated into SharePoint at this point, into Exchange. When you're dealing in PBIRS, it's integrated there as well. So that integration is a set of features that you have, but beyond that, you have to do a lot of work in order to get integration going with other pieces. So you also have an investment risk where you've invested this large amount of capital. What happens if nobody uses it because you didn't put together a proper adoption plan?
And anybody here use Performance Point? You know what investment risk looks like.
So, lastly, from a tooling perspective, when you're dealing in on-prem versus the cloud, all things are not equal. Okay? You're going to get a lot more stuff faster coming to the cloud. There are also drawbacks in that from a cloud perspective, that you don't get that you would get on-prem. So this is just a little eye chart that we decided to put together, and given time, we're not going to spend too much time. We're just going to leave this up here. This will be in the deck.
You notice that features was on every single one of the slides, and that's kind of why.
Yeah.
One of these things is not like the other.
And you also notice that SharePoint has a lot more stuff under it just because, well, we're SharePoint guys.
We are
so
SharePoint guys.
We kind of blew that one out for you.
Got a bit of a bias.
Yes. So I think I hand this over to you now.
Yep, we can do that. It's almost like we've scripted this.
Almost. I'm going to grab my water, though. Go ahead.
So I want to talk a little bit about reporting platforms. And we've shown a little bit about SharePoint so far. SharePoint's in the title of this deck. SharePoint for a very long time was seen as the BI platform. We're going to build everything on top of SharePoint. And when you boil it down, there were four major pillars of what you would call the BI workload in SharePoint, right? SSRS running in integrated mode, Excel services, really the first one. Integrated mode might have been called the first. Power Pivot for SharePoint, which came later, that gave us the ability to use Power Pivot data models in Excel in the browser in SharePoint, and Performance Point, the aforementioned Performance Point, the much maligned Performance Point. And what's been happening? When 2016 was released, this caused quite a bit of shock, right? We said goodbye to Excel services. Now, we took those Excel services capabilities and put them in Office Online Server, but we took it off of SharePoint, and that's really the key thing to note. We're still able to do all of that stuff. We just don't have to burden SharePoint with Excel services, and we don't have to burden Excel services with SharePoint. They're better together. We've removed the dependency. As of, I think, next week, with the release of a SQL Server, the date was announced here at the show. If it's not officially released right now, actually, it may be. I think it ships next week. There's no more SSRS integrated mode. This will be the first version of reporting services that is native mode only, which is why that web part I showed you before was so important. So we're left with Power Pivot for SharePoint and Performance Point. Now, Power Pivot for SharePoint is still there, and really it's only used to keep the data models inside of Excel workbooks refreshed. We still would need to connect to the Office Online Server to render our Excel workbooks. Power Pivot for SharePoint refreshes those data models. We don't need it to work with those data models. We can work with those data models by standing up an SSAS, SQL Server Analysis Services server, that runs in Power Pivot mode. And then we connect Office Online Server to that. All it's used for is that, so it's not really a big deal. Performance Point has been kind of stranded and put over here, and it's got a unique set of capabilities, but really doesn't talk to anything else. Neither one of these products run in the cloud. Can anybody tell me what's in common between these two besides that? Anyone care to venture a guess? No? They both use Silverlight.
The robust, super performant, much updated, still has a product team. All of these things are false, by the way.
By the way, this
Silverlight.
screen is what you'll see if you try to access those products if you're using Chrome, if you're using Edge, or any other modern browser. And I don't think anybody in this room is under the illusion that Silverlight's going to spring back to life anytime soon. So I think we can come to some reasonable conclusions about SharePoint as a BI platform. It isn't. It's not a reporting platform, at least not any longer. It's a surfacing platform. It's a dashboarding platform by all means, but it's not. And in fact, in 2015, in October 2015, the SQL team came out and said so. They had a big summit called The Box is Back and said, reporting services is our on-prem solution for BI report delivery. Power BI Report Server is, again, as I said, a superset of SSRS, so this is all true there. They did not say SharePoint. They did not say Performance Point. They did not say what's coming up in the following slide, but they implied it, and it really is valid. Power BI is the cloud platform. So we've got these two different platforms that ideally serve the same purpose. And at the same time, they defined 4 different report types. Now, conveniently, it lined up with the products. Don't know why that is. I would argue that 3 of these report types are subtypes of one type, an interactive report. But we'll stick with this for the moment. And this is important from a definitional standpoint. What Microsoft calls paginated reports are RDLs. And these are what you would think of as classic SSRS reports. And these are structured reports. They're the type of report that's meant to be printed, the type of report that answers questions you already have. They're not the type of report that you should interact with a whole lot. Whenever someone has asked me to drill through to SSRS or any kind of interactive capabilities, I kind of look at them funny because you can't click on a piece of paper. And that's really the way you should think about these types of reports. Interactive reports are just the opposite. And in this world, interactive reports are these PBIX reports. And these are the type of reports you get when you use Power BI Desktop. You can use Power BI Desktop to author these reports, deploy them to the service, and now deploy them to the Power BI Report Server as well. Mobile report is a specific case. Mobile reports were added to SSRS in 2016. They come from an acquisition called DataZen, and they give the ability to bring mobile to SSRS, essentially. But it's a different type of report. But you could also argue that PBIX itself is a mobile report type, and I do make that argument. And then we have what they call analytical reports, and these are Excel files. It just lines up that way. That type of report, which is totally valid, Microsoft refers to as analytical. I would call interactive, mobile, and analytical all types of interactive reports, but that's neither here nor there. So coming back to the 2 different platforms, how do they line up? Power BI and the service can render all types except paginated. We can't do RDL in the cloud, at least not yet. SSRS on-prem and Power BI Report Server can render, as of the current preview, can render all of the report types. They do so by connecting to Excel Online Server if you're on premises, and of course, if you're in the cloud, they use Excel Online itself. All right? How are we doing?
We're doing very well, John.
We're doing very well. Okay.
You're doing great. Keep going.
So let's talk about keeping data current. So refresh in the on-premises data gateway. On-premises data gateway is key to all of this, and you'll see why here in just a second. So if we look at how Power BI is built, remember Jason showed the basic BI schematic earlier? It's a variant of it. Power BI itself can pull data from various different data sources into a data model. This all happens within the file, within the context of the client. We don't have any servers running. We're just running either Excel with Power Pivot. This is basically Power Query with Power Pivot that you're seeing here, or Power BI Desktop. And we build out a data model. And this is the same data model that SSAES uses. And in fact, when you deploy either one of those types, PBIX or Excel, to the Power BI service, what happens is that data model gets taken and put in essentially a huge analysis services server farm that's behind the scenes. You don't have to deal with it, but it's there. So that when users access the Power BI service, they get all of that analytical capability without having to do any of that heavy lifting. Now, what I'm describing here is pretty much all in the cloud, or it got to the cloud through the publishing step. How do we keep our data up to date? We use the on-premises data gateway. And the on-premises data gateway is much, much more than just keeping data up to date in Power BI, but it serves that function. That's how it started its life, actually. And the on-premises data gateway is a piece of software you run inside your firewall that makes a connection to Azure. Right? Well, it uses the Azure Service Bus to make a connection to Power BI, so that the Power BI refresh engine can make a connection back to it, and it, in turn, makes its connection to your on-premises data sources. It then encrypts those data sources, sends them up to the service, where they get, essentially, they refresh the data models that are there. It's not just, as I said, it's not just used by Power BI. It's used by Flow, and it's used by Power Apps as well. And it's what's given us that real-time capability. It also gives us that, as I mentioned before, that refresh capability. One thing I will point out is the credentials. When you have data credentials that are sensitive, they're never stored in the cloud. They're stored in the gateway itself. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Is it a pointer to data on-prem, or is it being replicated?
If we're doing refresh, the data is being cached in the cloud, and we're going to talk about that here in just a second. Actually, we're going to go right into depth, so I'm going to have you hold on there. So this is a refresh scenario. In the refresh scenario, and I've just kind of pivoted that earlier diagram a little bit, we've got users accessing Power BI and the data model in the cloud. We have the refresh service go off, and if the data is in the cloud, it just goes out and gets it. So if you've got a SharePoint online data source, you don't have to worry about any plumbing. But if your data is on-prem, it goes back through the on-premises data gateway and refreshes that data cache up in the service. Okay? However, and I want to talk just briefly some of the benefits and the downsides of data caching. Latency is a problem, right? Data latency is in particular. The data has changed, but we don't see it until the next step in the refresh schedule. And that's when we talk about the difference between real time and real enough time. And for the most part, if it doesn't matter, you shouldn't worry about it. But in some cases, it might matter. Sensitivity. Is the data in the cloud? I don't want my data in the cloud. Well, then don't put it there. Don't cache it. And we'll have a solution to that here in a second. And performance. If I have my data cached up in the cloud, it's going to perform really well. If I have to go back on-prem, I'm introducing lag. And if I'm having to reconstruct queries in real time, I'm introducing lag as well. A data model is optimized for multidimensional querying. A tabular database isn't, and I have to build queries, so that it's going to be slower and more resource intensive. So there are benefits and negatives. So direct query is the way we provide real-time access. It's actually one of the ways we provide it. With that, we deploy a data model to the cloud that was built using direct query. And with direct query, all we have in the model are the underlying queries, basically the Power Query stuff. but we don't have the hydrated data in there. Every time we access a visual, we go back, or we go straight out to the data source if it's in the cloud, or we go back through the on-premises data gateway and directly query those data sources. So you can see there's going to be a performance impact at those data sources as well. It's good at it, but there is an impact. Now, finally, there's another way to accomplish that same capability. If our data source is analysis services, remember I said before that data model is the same data model as is in analysis services? Well, we can stand up an analysis services server in the cloud. There's a service, Azure Analysis Services, and just put the data model there. Or we can come back through the data gateway and access it there. But you'll notice there's no virtual data model in the middle. And that means we've already done that optimization for multidimensional queries. We're just executing it here at these different endpoints as opposed to within the Power BI service itself. Have I lost everyone yet? All right, that's most of the real geeky stuff. There is a downside to using direct query. It's a limited set of data sources. So in the demo before, when I showed you the SharePoint list, I didn't have it in real time, and that's why. Essentially, it's not a relational database. So we can access an awful lot of data sources on premises, fewer in the cloud, oddly enough, with direct query. But if we can't use direct query, we can always use the cache model. And in fact, if you want to know a lot more about this, we just recorded a podcast yesterday with Miguel Llopis, who's in charge of the on-premises data gateway. And we go into a fair amount of depth on that.
So publish that one later in the month.
Yeah, it hasn't been published yet.
Next.
Okay. And you've seen a lot of, you've seen Flow, and you've seen an awful lot of Power Query, but there are additional tools that we can use to move data around. I just wanted to make sure we called that out. We can use Logic Apps, Flow's on here. Azure Data Factory is another tool. Streaming analytics, and as Jason mentioned before, SQL Server integration services on premises, and now SQL Server integration services Project Everest, which is the next version of Azure Data Factory that should be able to run SSIS jobs. All right?
All right. So I'm going to move us a little bit faster because we want to get to the scenarios that we talked about.
I tend to ramble.
Yeah. So from a dashboards perspective, there are two types of dashboards we're going to talk about real quick. Power BI dashboards. This, again, is cloud only when you're dealing with Power BI dashboards. There are two sources that you can get them from. One is Power BI service reports, and the other one is SSRS or PBIRS paginated reports. Okay, so you can get it from on-prem or in Power BI. Okay, there's no interaction between the visuals. So when you click on something, the other visuals don't move, unlike when you're dealing with other types of, any type of report. Dashboards are specific and static, to that one visual. You do get to use the natural language query, and you do get access to streaming data using the Power BI dashboards. Okay. From a SharePoint dashboards perspective, the Excel services web part for Excel reports, it's great. The SSRS SSRS report viewer web part, this is the new one.
It's the new one.
So John blogged quite extensively about it earlier in the week or last week. So if you're looking for a lot of detail on that, he goes into it on his blog, which is whitepages.unlimitedviz.com. And you can go to, you can take a look at that. You can use the Power BI web part. Okay, this is if you are in SharePoint Online, you have to be in the modern page framework in order for this to work. However, if you're not, you can use the embed model here, which is the RS embed true for interactive and mobile reports. And then there are other, content types you can use, iframes, et cetera, as well. Now, this is an eye chart. It's meant to be an eye chart. This walks through the different report types and platforms and what SharePoint integration you have. Okay, so for example here, and we're not going to go through each and every one of these just because we don't have the time to do it, but we wanted to give this to you because this is the only place we've ever seen this, and we had to create it in order to give that authoritative view. PBIX files in the Power BI service, you can view those through a SharePoint Online modern page with the web part. Works really well. I'm not a fan of this one, but you can use in the SharePoint Online Classic pages the anonymous view. Don't. We'll talk about that in a minute. And SharePoint On-Prem, you can also use the anonymous version. Don't do it. Right?
Really?
I don't have an opinion on this at all. Okay, but so as you walk through this, you can see, so an RDL in PBIRS or SSRS native mode. Do you want to talk to it?
Yeah, so really the thing to bring out here is we've got, in some cases, specialized web parts that allow us to do this, do embedding. And when we don't, there's going to be an embed option. And SSRS in particular, the one thing I want to call out that I didn't call out before is this RS embed option. If you put RS embed equals true in the URL of an SSRS report, you can put it through an iframe, through a script editor web part on a SharePoint page, pretty much anywhere you want. So this is calling, the way Mark Rackley's done it all along. It basically builds everything in a script editor web part. Yeah. So it's the same idea, and you can get away with doing that in a lot of cases, and not all cases. But there are cases that anonymous, is okay.
No.
Yes, there are.
No, there's never a good excuse for using anonymous.
There is.
Name two.
All right. There's one.
Okay, that's not fair.
If you're using public data, it's fine. But be using public data. The problem with using anonymous publishing in PBI or in Power BI is that you have no control over who can access it. You hand that URL out and anybody can use it.
So if you use anonymous and with your corporate data, you cannot live with me. My wife has already said no. I know we have a guest room, but the answer was no. That's your fault. Don't use anonymous with corporate data. That's one reasonable, and only because we created it.
That's right.
Idea of doing an anonymous view.
So you can go and see all of the Twitter traffic around Ignite anytime you want. And it's at that link at the bottom. But there's another. Shark attacks.
Well, okay, fine. This is John's favorite. John's a diver. He really likes this data. And fine, all right.
When the feature first came out, the idea is it can be rendered on its own, but you can also embed it in pages. And if that's in regular web page, it doesn't have to be SharePoint. And in this case, this is my blog. And I've got a tab on my blog that will always show you an up-to-date set of stats around shark attacks worldwide in all of recorded history. And you can slice and dice it because it's Power BI, but it's public data once again.
So far, we've talked about shark attacks and dead squirrels in this session, just for those of you keeping track. That's too morbid, and death. So let's talk about scenarios, because we killed off a couple products here. Let's talk about a couple of scenarios. John, that's a great picture. I like that one.
You like that one?
Yeah.
That's a good one.
If you're all in the cloud, okay, these are the scenarios we want to walk through. If you're all in the cloud, if you're a small, unregulated organization, and by unregulated, I'm not saying that your CFO doesn't do his job. I'm talking about you don't have, government regulations that you have to live up to, HIPAA, FERPA, DoD regulations, all of those. If you're a small startup, or if you are a distributed business where your people aren't all in the same space, you're not going to have one pipe that's coming in to do all your stuff, it is reasonable to do everything in the cloud. Okay? We showed you how you can flow from a Power App and put something into a SharePoint list, use Flow to go off and approve. You can even approve using Flow on a mobile device, and then pump that data into a SharePoint list or into Azure SQL. Okay? Lots of options around that you can do. And then you can report on that using Power BI. Data refreshes there, really good stuff. Cool things that you can do. And then again, you can now report, embed that report into SharePoint and actually visualize that as well.
Or you're one of these. You got your IT director that's doing this. No one's allowed in. You're all on premises. You're not allowed to keep any kind of data in the cloud. There's lots of reasons for it. You might be regulated to do so. You're a particularly large organization, and maybe you've got scaling issues. Just IT driven. They didn't want to move to the cloud for job protection reasons, whatever it is. If you're going to do, yeah, it happens, doesn't it? IT, the Department of No. If you want to put stuff all on premises, you still can. You're not going to have a nice, clean, easy way to capture that data. You're probably going to have to build something or buy a Forms product. that'll allow someone to submit that item. But that item could be submitted directly back to a database. You would then use Power BI Report Server to connect to it. So you could, from outside, connect to Power BI Report Server and then get that data queried back for you directly. You could use a mobile device to do that very same thing, because we have mobile reports in Power BI Report Server. And of course, you can do that from inside as well. Or, if you have SharePoint, and of course it's going to be on-prem, we can use that web part to connect to SharePoint from inside or outside using any type of device, and it in turn will connect back to Power BI Report Server and render those reports for you. So there's a solution for you even if you're completely on-prem.
I'm not really comfortable with the naming of this slide, seeing as I was in a dress last night and we have a podcast called Bifocal, but we're going to go with it anyway. So for those of you who are cloud curious, starting to figure out your right space, you're looking at SharePoint on-prem data. You have SharePoint and you have on-premises. You don't have a whole lot of concerns about your data from a security perspective or regulatory perspective. So you're able to say, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and start to play here. I want to put some things in some places and some things in others. In this scenario, you can use Power Apps and pump that data back into a SQL Server on-prem through the on-premises data gateway, and then pull that data out instead, on a refresh basis using that on-premises data gateway into Power BI, cache it there, and then access it directly from your laptop or your mobile device, or from your laptop, whatever your fancy is. And if you happen to have SharePoint on-prem, well, that's just good for you. You really can't do anything with it in this scenario, but it's good for you.
Anonymous. You can do it anonymous.
Don't listen to him.
Gimme. All right. Oh, another interesting, another scenario is massive amounts of data. And this gets into the scalability benefits of being on-prem, because there are limits to things you can do in the service. The Power BI, if you're using Power BI, that's the regular service, you can't have any data models any larger than 1 gigabyte. Premium gets you past that, but for the most part, that's a pretty hard limit. And if you need that, you're going to want to scale up past that. You want a solution, and you can do that. Because before I was talking about taking that data model and putting it in an SSAS server, and that's the way to solve this particular problem. But in that scenario, you're going to have to get the data from the source and bring it into your SSAS server. Once you have it in your SSAS server, you bring it into an on-prem SSAS server, or you can flow it into analysis services in the cloud. So on-prem, you're going to be maintaining the hardware, but you've got capacity. You've removed capacity limits, and analysis services or Azure Analysis Services doesn't have a lot of capacity limits. So it's a way to get around the Power BI limit. There's a cost associated with it, but there's a cost associated with having it on a server on your premises as well. And when you do that, and you query into SharePoint or Power BI directly, or SharePoint and then Power BI through the web part, it of course makes a direct connection, or a direct query connection to that data model, or through the data gateway from that data model itself. That scenario I talked about a little bit earlier. But this will get you around any of those capacity limits. So this is a solution for you there as well.
All right. And our very last scenario here is for those of you who do have sensitive data on-prem and you're looking for to do collaboration in the cloud. You're comfortable with online, but you do have regulations that you have to be concerned about. So in this particular scenario, we again start with the same workflow where you'd submit through a Power App, and goes into Flow. You can do approval. You can do all of these things from the mobile device. Goes to on-prem. Goes into a SQL Server database. Schedule refresh going out. Oh, sorry, hang on.
No, not schedule refresh.
Not schedule refresh. I messed it up a little bit. But you can go off from your laptop, going off to Power BI or SharePoint Online, and be able to reach back to that data. It's not going to cache it in the cloud at this point. It's going to keep that data on-prem, and you're going to reach back through the on-prem data gateway and actually grab that data out and visualize it either in Power BI or in SharePoint Online using the web part. So, and we can do that here as well. So with that, we are going to wrap up. We have a last couple of points that we'd like to make.
Oh, you want to flip over to me for just a second? I want to show one thing that I failed to do earlier. What you're seeing here is a Power BI, a PBIX report embedded in a SharePoint page that's on premises in classic mode. It's a script editor web part using that RS embed capability from before. So you can embed Power BI reports in SharePoint in the cloud through the Power BI web part. You can embed those same reports on premises if they're being rendered on premises using a script editor web part. You can do that today, and you can do it in SharePoint 2013 if you need to. I just wanted you to see it actually working there. That's all. We can flip back.
All right. So we have a last couple of takeaways here. So hopefully from this, you've seen an implementation that you can do. Again, it was rather complex. It was
Well,
not,
to do all of it. I don't
Yeah.
think you're going to want to do all of it.
That's a pretty hefty thing, and you'd have to have the right use case. So again, it's those choices that you have to make a decision. Are you going cloud, or are you going on-prem, or are you going to go hybrid? And for that on-prem world, for reporting, it is either SSRS or PBIRS, that Power BI report server. From a cloud reporting perspective, you're going to be using Power BI. And if you're going to do embedding or storing in Excel, you're going to be using SharePoint for that. And the on-premises data gateway is absolutely crucial. Everybody should have one, in your environment.
At least one.
At least one, yes. Have 7, why not? Well, you only need one. But definitely something you should be taking a look at. The complexities of these things, they're pretty high. That's a part of the realities. But make sure you have an understanding and have a plan. Hopefully, what you've seen here today is that there are great avenues in many different ways if you decide to go all in the cloud, if you decide to stay all on-prem, and even if you're in some of those other edge scenarios, lots of different options for different ways that you can do. Lastly, there are lots of other sessions at this conference that we'd like to highlight.
Most of them that have happened already.
But the cool thing is that all of this is being recorded, including our dead squirrel comments, and are going to be out there. So please make sure that if this is of interest to you, there were some really great sessions at this conference. And then lastly, go subscribe to our podcast. We'd appreciate it because we have some really great stuff. We get an opportunity to talk to these people at Microsoft, hearing all of the great stuff that they're doing, and we get to bring that to you so that you don't have to wait for the next conference to hear what's happening. That's our goal. We're going to be working to make sure that we're doing this weekly and bringing you whatever news is happening and some great interviews as well. Do us a favor, evaluate the session. If you loved the session, we're BRK 3250. If you didn't, 2156. And his name is Chris Finland. So with that, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Have a great rest of the conference.
We'll take questions as long as they'll let us take questions. If there are, yes?
What have you seen has been the limit to the amount of data you can pull on a direct query through the data gateway?
What's the limit to the amount of data we can pull in a direct query through the gateway? The limit is, in my through a direct query, and you're thinking about doing it live. The limits I have bumped into, and I bumped into these limits doing it with the Ignite Twitter, believe me. Funny story, but when I was testing this, I needed a fairly high rate of tweet content. So I basically slapped it on Donald Trump for a little while. And I quickly overwhelmed the system. But the problems I had were on the database side. They weren't a limit of the gateway itself. The gateway was able to keep up, but the number of queries against the database is what seemed to be a problem there. But I haven't done an in-depth scientific analysis of it. There's probably a better answer than that.
So it failed at the response, and it was at the response that it said, no, don't use direct query.
Yeah, basically it got too slow. We couldn't rebuild our queries because remember, we're building these queries that are executing against a large amount of data and aggregating it in real time. So it's a fairly complex operation. So it's that part of it that timed out. It depends on the complexity of your model is what it boils down to. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the question I had is wondering about mixed protocols when you're internal and external. So are you really going to have to make sure that your internal systems are upgraded to HTTPS in order to avoid like iframe problems?
That'd be a better question. Well, it depends on what we're talking about. Do you want that one,
Always
Jason?
be using HTTPS at this point. You know, principle of least privilege dictates, you know, anytime you're pushing data outside, do it as securely as possible. That's just my personal view, but I'm an old school security admin at heart. And I cause more problems for myself in a troubleshooting perspective when I do it. But it's definitely, anytime you're taking your data outside of your firewall, as locked down as you can be, as secure as you can be, absolutely. So everything that we were doing is using SSL.
The one thing I should point out is the Power BI web part. It takes care of all that behind the scenes. It's basically using your auth for you. When you're doing an iframe style embed with the script editor web part, you're going to, in the case of a Power BI report server, you're going to have to authenticate to that. So you're going to have that, or you're going to get prompted. So, or if you've got single sign-on to that server, that'll pass that through, and that's where that's going to be. You don't want to get those mixed mode messages. So that's where that could happen anyway. Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If you don't mind talking to the
Yeah, if you don't mind,
microphone,
yeah, I don't have to
If
repeat it.
you- Can you hear me?
Yeah.
If you embed an actual report in SharePoint, can you expose the ability to refresh the data set?
No. The mechanism for doing the refresh has to be done from the Power BI, the manual refresh through the Power BI console. Now you could set up a link that takes you there and to do it, but just the
Right.
controls are not there.
They're just not
That's correct,
No
yeah.
API or anything like that.
Yeah, if you've got the rights to the report, you probably have the rights to refresh the data, so you
Okay.
can just go back to Power BI and
So
do the
they,
refresh.
literally users would have to have the ability to go to app Power BI to be able to do what they need to do.
They're going to need to have security access to that anyway,
A
so they're going to
report
have
anyway,
that license. They're going to need a pro license for the most part, if you're going to be sharing it out through a group or something
Okay,
like that.
got
So,
it. Appreciate it. Thanks.
no problem.
So we're over time. So any other questions, please feel free to come on up
Find
and have a
us.
chat with us. We're going
Mail
to go ahead
us.
and cut off now. Thank you, guys.
Thanks so much.